What is up, my fellow nerds? Welcome to Tales of Nerdia. Today we're talking about Chapter 377 of Hunter x Hunter. Let's start off with the panel that is causing a lot of excitement on Twitter, a lot of people debating on Twitter or on Reddit of what this panel actually means. I'm showing it on screen now, and it's Illumi talking about his contract with Hisoka. Now, initially, when I read this, I thought this was Illumi being like a little cheeky, or it was just an analogy for the contract that they have together, Hisoka and Illumi. Now, I understand the sentiment of wanting to have diverse representation in film and manga and anime and all these other entertainment media forms. So I get that. But when you read this panel, it's one thing you have to take into account is that this is a fan translation. The idea of the engagement ring he gave me was a prenup. That's not how prenups work. So I think just that in general should have given you some red flags. Normally, I don't go on Reddit and look for things. I try to do my own reaction and not put other people's ideas in my head. But for this, I wanted to see what the original Japanese would look like and really find out what like a true translation would look like. I found this interesting thread on Reddit that I'm going to go ahead and link in the description, put a little bit of it up on screen now. But essentially what it says is that this is kind of the wording that was given. It talks about engagement ring, prenup, things like that. However, one thing that this user pointed out on Reddit was that the engagement ring is in quotes, double quotes, and this is common when talking about nen abilities. Kurapika, when he talks about N, it's in double quotes. When there's another example given in the Reddit thread as well that you can click on for silent majority is in double quotes as well. So interesting in really two ways. One, it could just be that the double quotes means that he is making an analogy when talking about their contract together. But also, it could mean that this is more than just a signed contract, or he's being hired to assassinate him, and even if he dies, he's gonna still get paid. It could be some sort of nen ability or a nen contract between the two, and that reward could be something different than money, which I thought that was very interesting. So I suggest that you head over to this Reddit thread and give it a read. Just because, everybody's freaking out about this panel. It's getting shared all across Twitter. People are seeing it without the context of what's going on and seeing it as confirmation that Illumi and Hisoka are, like, in a relationship. And I really don't think that's the case. But tomorrow we'll see the Viz translation. We'll see how they decide to do this. And hopefully that could shed some more light on the subject. But until then, I'm just going to leave it at that. Please go read that Reddit thread. It'll give you more details. Now, back to business. So the name of this chapter is Scheme, and we pretty much follow two parties. We've got the Phantom Troupe scheming on a way to get to Hisoka, and then you got Kacho scheming, trying to escape the succession war and plan out this sort of like concert that she wants to put on. So we'll talk about Kacho first, and very interesting her mom's reaction when, she reveals or says to her, oh, I want to do this concert, I want to do it with my sister, and blah, 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 we're the hosts of this banquet. And then her mom's, oh, I'll ask your dad. And then Kacho gets serious. Mom, you don't have to do that. We're in a succession war, blah, 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 blah. And then the queen is kind of taken aback a bit, and it's just her realization, that her daughter is taking this very seriously, and it's just a reminder that, one of them could die. And it's kind of a wake-up call that they're not just kids anymore, and they have to participate in this war. And going back to what she says to her mom about playing the glass harp, I didn't know what that was. So, like, in the later panels, when I see her setting up a bunch of tables with glasses of wine, or wine glasses with like water in them, I didn't really know what was going on, but apparently that's the glass harp. It's just wine glasses filled with water that you rub your finger across and it makes different sounds. Now, overall, Kacho's plan is pretty interesting because if Melody gets involved, and she is part of this music show, is what Kacho calls it, but I'll just call it a concert. If she's part of this concert, is she going to use her Nen? What kind of ability is she going to bring out? Is it some sort of calming ability? Maybe she has like some sort of lullaby, in her back pocket, a different ability that we haven't seen before. If Melody is part of this concert, things can get interesting. I wonder if anyone's going to try to stop them later when when Kacho is discussing it with Melody. It's a bit hard to tell who is speaking when they're using Morse code, or at least I had a little bit of a hard time deciphering that. But it looks like Melody says to her, tell the king to keep this a secret and that you want it to be like a nice surprise for everyone. So hopefully that will mean that because it's a surprise, no one will be able to stop it from happening. She also mentions, one of them mentions making sure that this is done over the intercom or the speaker so that the whole first floor can hear it. And if you remember, Sale also wants to use the intercom or the speaker for something, is what he was telling those girls he was with, like, oh, I'm going to change the world at the next banquet. I'll make sure to, like, broadcast it over the intercom so you can hear it. So those two could butt heads somehow. Sale and Kacho. Sale doesn't really have any Nen users, I don't think, on his side. Yeah, I don't think he has any Hunter Association members. I'd have to double check that. But I think that means that things probably won't go as smoothly for one of these parties. It's either going to be Kacho's plan or Sale's plan, or they could just interrupt each other and they're both kind of screwed. The other good part about this plan is it gives Kacho an excuse to go see Fugetsu, and then, of course, Melody could probably go with her, meet Fugetsu. They could talk out a plan. I really like the panel that shows the three of them, Kacho, Fugetsu, and Melody, and then the door. It just kind of shows that their fates are tied together and solidifies this is going to be a storyline. But now, before that panel, we get to see another hunter who is with Kacho. I believe there's 3 hunters, including Melody and this other guy, Kini. There is a third one. If you go back a couple chapters where they showed that big page of the breakdown of all the guards and who's with who. I think it said that Kacho had 3 hunters with her, but Kini has been using N. He detected Fugetsu, and, well, he detected someone popping their head out in Kacho's bed, and he was around when Melody detected Kacho's heartbeat go up, and basically said, like, oh, you noticed that too? So he has analyzed it and says that it's probably Fugetsu. Before we move on to the Phantom Troupe, I do want to mention some more development with the relationship between Kacho and Melody that I think is really interesting. She's thinking to herself, you don't have to keep pretending to hate me, things like that. She's worried that Kacho is going to sacrifice herself, if need be, in order to save her sister. Melody doesn't want that to happen. She's trying to think of a way to save both of them, but it seems like she is prioritizing Kacho because she's thinking Fugetsu wouldn't want you to sacrifice yourself for her sake. And it's just an interesting dynamic. Like I said, their fates seem to be very tied together based on this panel, and I'm interested to see how it's going to develop more. So, let's move on to the big reveal of the chapter. Illumi is in the Phantom Troupe. Unfortunately, this was spoiled for me. So, I posted my chapter reaction for 376 too late, and somebody in the comments let me know about this already. I wasn't sure if it was like a fake spoiler, like someone just trying to be funny, but turns out it was true. So that kind of sucks that I lost out on that moment, but it's true. I never would have guessed that this would have happened. I've been thinking for a long time that there's going to be another Zoldyck on the boat just so that, like, all of the parties people are interested in, besides, like, Gon, Killua, Gyro, and Kite, are on this boat. But I always thought that one of the Zoldicks would be hired as a bodyguard or to assassinate one of the other princes. And I guess that's still a possibility, but in this case, we get Illumi. He's part of the Phantom Troupe. Also on this page, we get a nice reveal of all of their last names, which I find exciting for some reason. I'll look into some of these once I see the katakana that's involved, just because some of them clearly don't work in katakana, like Franklin's Bordeaux, I think is how you would pronounce that. So I want to see the katakana and how these are spelled like phonetically in Japanese, and see if there's any references here. But nonetheless, even though it was spoiled for me, it's still very exciting to see him here. It means that he's not going after Killua and Aluka, so hopefully they are still safe. Wondering if we'll get to see what they're up to eventually. But now that he's here, he's not after them. He's going after Hisoka. So apparently Hisoka hired him. Crollo says, introduce yourself, explain yourself. But Hisoka hired him to kill him. And they've had he says, a give and take relationship, which is, Hisoka's been hiring him for a lot of jobs for a long time. Illumi has asked Hisoka, to help him with hunting down Aluka and things like that. So give and take relationship. But Illumi has said before, that, and this is kind of an argument against the whole, they're engaged thing, was that, Illumi was telling Killua that you can't have friends, or way back when in the Hunter exam, that assassins have no need for friends and things like that. So why would Illumi get married? And do you really see Hisoka doing something like that? So I think this is this is either an analogy or it's possibly a Nen ability. But I think I've spent enough time on that. One thing I want to talk about is the Mafia. So the Mafia shows up. They've all got rose tattoos. Because I was digging around on Reddit for more information about the whole Illumi situation, Illumi and Hisoka thing, I did stumble upon someone who had mentioned, or maybe it was on Twitter, that because these guys have rose symbols on them, possibly they have the bombs implanted in them that Netero had implanted in him. But just wanted to throw that out there, that I saw it was mentioned and I thought it was interesting. I'm not sure how I feel about that theory. This Mafia is the Cha-R family, which is the Mafia that is in connections with Lucidus. And what I think could be interesting is, now that they know the Phantom Troupe is on the 5th floor, and they later say, we gotta let the boss know because, there could be some bloodshed, we may have a dispute on our hands. Is word going to get back to Lucidus that this dangerous group called the Phantom Troupe is aboard the boat? If so, will Lucidus let Basho know, or will Basho be around when it happens? And if Basho finds out, a little game of telephone going on here, would he let Kurapika know? That's what I'm curious about. And then, of course, as they climb the other floors, are the other princes going to be aware? If they go to the floor where the 3rd prince, Zhang Lei, has his guards, has, the Mafia that he has connections with, if they're there, will they let him know? Will that, in turn, get back to Kurapika, that information get back to Kurapika, since he has this sort of alliance with the 3rd prince? Only time will tell. But I think it's a possibility that I wanted to throw out there, that word can get back to Kurapika because he has connections with Basho, who is with Lucidus, and he has connections directly with Zhang Lei. Now, as far as the interaction between the Mafia and the Phantom Troupe, I thought it was just a bit strange that, they said their initial search of the 5th floor, they didn't find anyone above 190 centimeters tall. They couldn't find Hisoka on their initial search. So when the Mafia comes over and asks them to leave, Crollo says, "What's in it for me?" He's like, "Oh, well, we'll team up, but as long as you leave the table. That's all I'm asking you for." So then Crollo tells him, "Oh, we're looking for a guy named Hisoka, blah, blah, blah." Gets a little bit of information about going to the other floors and things like that. I get that the Phantom Troupe wouldn't want to just start an all-out brawl or kill these people and cause a commotion. I get that. That makes sense. So now that I'm saying it out loud and thinking about it more, I guess that makes sense. They wouldn't really, cause a commotion, and they're not really the arrogant types who are going to be like, "Bitch, this is my table. Go find another table. Who are you?" Because they could probably take these guys down at any moment. I think the only one of them that could use Nen is Sunbin, I think was his name. because they ask him, what do you think of those guys? And he's the one who said, like, they didn't even try to hide their nen. They're super dangerous. So they're relying on him to determine how dangerous the Phantom Troupe is. So he's probably the only one in this group that can use nen, or at least use it well, I would assume. Even though Sunbin tells them that they're super dangerous, the Phantom Troupe, super dangerous, they still need to stop them, is what their leader is saying. And I don't know how the hell they're going to do that, and I don't really want to speculate and go down that road. But it's just one more variable in this whole arc. But I do think they will play some sort of significant role, because at the very end of the chapter, it says, next chapter, princes, mafia, the troupe, hunters, things are about to get real complicated. And I looked back at the past few chapters, and we don't get that sort of little blurb about, oh, next chapter, get ready for this. And it's saying things are about to get real complicated, as if they aren't already. But the fact that the Mafia was included there, they're going to play some sort of role here. But this little blurb here at the end makes me feel like they will be significant. But I digress. The Phantom Troupe now are splitting up. They're going after Hisoka. Now, this part was pointed out to me during the live stream, and it would be really difficult for me to go back and find out who it was, so I'm sorry about that. But if you look at Machi's eyes on the page that shows all the Phantom Troupe, there's no dialogue there, and they're all going their separate ways to hunt down Hisoka. If you look at Machi's eyes, it looks like she's looking back at Illumi and Kaluto, because she is suspicious of them. And she should be, or at least of Illumi, because of his connections with Hisoka. And this is something I didn't mention, that I should have when I was talking about Illumi and Hisoka's contract, but this could be a trap. This could be a way for Hisoka to get information. I feel like Illumi is telling the truth for the most part, but if this does turn out to be some sort of nen ability that, or nen contract between Illumi and Hisoka, I think the reward could be something interesting. Maybe if one of them kills the other, they will gain a certain ability, something like that. I don't know. It's suspicious. It's strange that Hisoka wants to hunt down the Phantom Troupe, but he recommends or hires someone to join them in the hunt. So it's very suspicious. There could be a lot going on here. I did see someone mention that maybe Illumi is not really Illumi, and it's Hisoka disguised. I don't think so. And overall, I think that's highly unlikely. I mean, we haven't really seen Hisoka use texture surprise on his face. I think that stems from the chapter that the guy from Tokyo Ghoul wrote about Hisoka's past. I'm pretty sure that's where it stems from. But ever since this arc, we've seen a lot of people theorize that Hisoka is disguised as somebody else on the boat. I don't think he would disguise himself as Illumi. I think this is really Illumi. I think there is obviously more going on with this contract than we currently know. We'll see how that goes. So they split up. Shizuku and, as I call him, Boner Love, Bonolanov. So those two want to team up with Crollo. They say their abilities don't really match up to fight Bungee Gum. Now, in discussing strategy, Shizuku gonna disguise herself and search for Hisoka. Boner Love, turns out he can transform. I didn't know that. Someone in the live stream mentioned that he transformed into Jupiter, but I really thought that that was just his aura around him when he did that move. So this is a surprise to me, at least. I didn't know that he could transform and, disguise himself. Now, this collaboration, well, not the collaboration itself, but the fact that Shizuku is going to be walking around disguised, trying to find Hisoka, could spell trouble for her if you believe that Neon's old fortunes are still, active, even though they are supposed to only be for a short time period. Because of what happened with Shalnark, there's a lot of speculation on the other fortunes and that Shizuku might be next. Now, even though it was recommended to me that I go back and read those, I didn't do that yet for this reaction because I'm not sure we're going to stick with the troupe for the next chapter, but we'll see how that goes, and I'll look into it in more detail before the next chapter. One thing I do want to mention before we wrap this up, though, is that Shizuku asks for her fortune to be told again, and Chrollo can't because that page, that ability, has disappeared from his book. Which would normally mean that Neon is dead. Now, Sun and Moon stayed in his book because of the passion and the emotion behind that original user's, the dedication behind that original user's Nen. But normally, pages will disappear if the user dies. In Neon's case, she's using this for her father and for her fortune, and she does love doing it. She was passionate about the person that inspired her to read fortunes, but it doesn't seem like the kind of ability that would stick around and become stronger after death and stay in Chrollo's book. So either she's dead, maybe it was some sort of Nen exorcist, but really it's not. I'm not sure if Chrollo's stealing ability counts as like a Nen curse. With the judgment chain that Kurapika placed on Chrollo, it's a Nen chain wrapped around your heart. So, of course, you need to get rid of that and exorcise that. With Genthuru's bomb that was on Abengane, it's the Nen is active on you. Is that how Chrollo's book works? Is Chrollo's Nen lingering on you somehow? Would a Nen exorcist work? I'm not sure. I'm more inclined to think that Neon might be dead. And, before I was able to kind of think about this, someone in the live stream from a few days ago did say maybe Hisoka killed Neon because, before he got on the boat, because it clearly would be a disadvantage to him if he's going after the troupe and Chrollo can write fortunes. So, could be possible Hisoka doing some dirty work before getting on this boat. Now, the other possibility, the other scenario I'm thinking of is that maybe the exorcism of Kurapika's judgment chain had an effect on Chrollo's book. I was thinking this a long time ago, but it's because when a lot of people talk about the curse on Chrollo, they think that his Nen was sealed. But really, it's just that the judgment chain, he has to agree not to be able to use his Nen. Or does he have to agree to it? I don't know. The condition is you can't use Nen or the chain will kill you. So it's not that his Nen was necessarily sealed, he just couldn't use it. So this scenario, I think, is less likely. And he doesn't remember when the page disappeared from his book. And I have a feeling that once he was able to use Nen again, once the exorcism happened, I feel like he would check his book. He seems like a smart guy, and that would be something he would do, so he would notice if pages were missing, or if the exorcism did have an effect on Neon's ability, it probably would have had an effect on all the abilities in his book, and he would notice, oh, I don't have any more abilities. So this is like a 1% chance, I think, that the exorcism had something to do with it. So I think the majority of the evidence pointing to Neon is dead, and that would be unfortunate. But that's where we'll go ahead and end it this week. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think Neon's dead? Do you think something else going on there? What do you think of this contract between Illumi and Hisoka? That's what I really want to know. But appreciate you guys watching. Thanks for joining me if you were watching the live stream a couple days ago. And I'm going to keep doing those because I had a lot of fun. At one point, over 100 viewers, which was really exciting. So I'm going to continue to do live streams, continue to try to get these chapter reactions out sooner than I have been. But that's it. Thanks for watching. Throw me a like if you enjoyed. I'll see you very soon. Bye.